Oh, hello there. Yes. Well, where did that go? That was my weekend gone. And now I've got to do work this week. Work. Boo. And indeed hiss. Yes. If only I was liberated from the world of work, I'd be, well, liberated, I suppose. Anyway, today we're going to, well, probably be all anti-Semitic today because we're going to discuss the Jewish Chronicle and the odd things that are going on there and the even odder response of the British media to the odd things that are going on there. A few days ago, The Guardian had been doing a long-term investigation into the Jewish Chronicle and came up with this. Crisis at the Jewish Chronicle as stories based on wild fabrication are withdrawn. Newspapers' due diligence is under scrutiny amid growing and misgivings over its ownership and the role of its editor. Yes, indeed, because the Jewish Chronicle had to publish an apology about a person they'd employed called Elon Perry, who, it transpires, had a very dodgy past that they hadn't bothered to look into, and wrote a whole bunch of very internationally recognised, if I can put it that way, very dodgy stories, very pro-Israel, dodgy stories about being an insider. Elon Perry's an insider with the IDF and the government, and it transpired that he wasn't. So the Jewish Chronicle published a bit of an apology. They went, "Oh, how bad, how bad." And basically what they've been saying is there's nothing to see here. The problem is, though, of course, that there is quite a bit to see there. Because for those of you that don't know, the Jewish Chronicle, the world's oldest Jewish newspaper, it's a very, very, very ancient title, was basically dying on its legs. And then it got massive cash injection from person, we don't know who, which kept it going, and they've been very quiet about where the money's come from. Now, the problem with that, inevitably, is when you put cash into things, they tend to go wrong, right? They tend to go wrong. So what that sort of sudden lifting of the profile, one way or another, of the Jewish Chronicle has enabled the Jewish Chronicle and certain people, particularly its editor Jake Simmons, to do, is very much have a kind of free access to various parts of the British media that other people don't. Now, if you look at the actual circulation of the Jewish Chronicle, it's very, very low because it's only really read by the Jewish community. If I was to say to you that the BBC were going to regularly have the editor of the Morning Star on to discuss their view of the papers, you'd think that was a bit odd, really, wouldn't you? And let's face it, you don't even know who the editor of the Morning Star is because you've never seen them, because they never get invited onto that. And yet, the editor of a very minor publication basically gets free access to the British media. Well, the odd thing about this, okay, was that even yesterday, nobody seemed in the British media other than the Guardian, seemed to want to ask those awkward questions of Jake Simmons. So, for example, he had this piece, yet another pro-Israel piece in the Telegraph. Okay, and then I was honestly blown away by this. Okay, because if ever you want a perfect metaphor about the ideological capture of the British media, okay, you get this, right? It was Camilla Tominey's show yesterday, right, okay, where a certain person who was the editor of the Jewish Chronicle was reviewing the papers. Yes, Jake Wallace Simmons reviewing the papers. Now, actually in the Observer yesterday, there would have been that article about the Jewish Chronicle, and yet he didn't mention it. Now, you would have thought, what with that being the big media news story for certainly last week and probably the last month, that Camilla would have jumped on him asking those awkward questions. But oddly she didn't. Yes. You see, because nobody is going to ask those awkward questions, because there is a set apparatus in the British media, and that includes GB News and all of those right-wing podcasts, all of those lovely right-wing podcasts, whereby nobody will ask those awkward questions, and they gather the wagons and circle them to make sure that those, well, insert natives here notion get kept out. So yesterday we had Zoe Strimple. I love how the instance of apparent fabrication of intel concerning Simwar by a fraud published by the Jewish Chronicle is published on by an insane lip-smacking glee by The Guardian and the rest of the anti-Israel lobby. Yeah, not just investigative journalism, but nasty people with a vicious intent against her shopping in Hampstead Waitrose. Yes, 972, Middle East Eye, etc. But that the more than 1,200 betrayals of standards of journalistic truth regarding Israel and the verbatim repetition of Hamas porkies among the most of the rest of the press is either denies or ignores. Yeah, you see, it just isn't fair that somebody, including the Jewish Chronicle themselves, have said that this is a bit iffy, right? Yeah? You may recall my video about iffy Israeli businessman publishing anti-BBC stuff, which is what she's referring to here. That got an awful lot of coverage, and yet the mainstream media are just not covering this story at all. Only The Guardian. Only The Guardian. I imagine that Private Eye will write a bit about it as well, and that'll be a lot. Maybe the Morning Star will, but we'll never hear about it because that's the system. Now, on a bigger picture with this, of course, this is where the nefarious influence of money leads us, because whenever you allow money into a system, it destroys it, okay? Doesn't matter what it is. You can privatise the water, you get Thames Water, right? Yeah? You can privatise the railways, but then you find yourself waiting for 2 hours on Oldham Station for one. And you can put a lot of money into simply putting propaganda aimed at the British people into the media, and it breaks because the people don't believe you anymore. And here's Sophia Money Coots. Yes, that is a laugh. Have a laugh with her name. She knows that you do, but she's a proud gal who only prints the truth, albeit one that she's paid for in the Daily Telegraph. So I had to smile at this yesterday. All my friends are leaving the UK because nothing works here anymore. It's not just millionaires fleeing, middle class families have been priced out of this country. Yes, what a shame, 45 years of neoliberalism and nothing works. And what are they doing? They're gonna leave. Why? Because they broke it, and you, I'm looking at you junior doctors, and you wokest teachers have broken it. Yes, it can't be anything that they've done. The fact that they've just allowed money to destroy everything. And here we are. Well, we'll see if she can get a train out, shall we? I doubt if she will. Do have a lovely week, but do bear that in mind about people that complain about this country so much. Anyway, I thought the plan was that if you complain about this country, you have to leave. But that won't stop them, will it? Meanwhile, I have to live here. I don't have a choice because I'm not economically free like they are. I wonder who's paying, I wonder who's paying Money Coots. So in the future it could be yet another billionaire with an agenda, and I'm sure everything will work out fine for the rest of us because, like Elon Musk, they only have our best interests at heart, don't they? Yes. Apologists for a genocidal state, and then they sit down and they discuss not themselves on mainstream media. Nothing to see here. Cheese. Do enjoy.